Well, Dan Aykroyd has apparently chimed in on the cancel culture controversy. Now, some people say he's directly referencing Dave Chappelle. I don't think he is, but obviously in the context, it probably is relevant to Chappelle. Essentially saying it is okay that some forms of comedy are off limits and that we do have some limits on what comedians can do and say. And immediately people looked up Trading Places where he did what some people would consider offensive comedy. Now, I saw Trading Places a long time ago. I thought it was very funny. And I don't even remember that specific segment, but the whole point of Trading Places is to be very, very offensive. It's meant to be a very adult, offensive comedy. So there's no hypocrisy if you're saying, well, yeah, I did that in the past, but I think it's time for us to move on, and so on and so forth. I guess I'm less worried about his stance than what it means for Ghostbusters going forward. I don't mind that they're going to skew the comedy in this Ghostbusters a little bit younger, a little bit more safe, more sentimental. That's fine. The Ghostbusters cartoon often did that. But again, I've always imagined Ghostbusters sort of in between the line between very young comedy and very adult comedy. And that's what gives Ghostbusters its particular edge. So if they went a little too far with trying to reach a young audience, I think something would get lost. Some people have brought up that it's not right to say that the Ghostbusters are always urban because in the cartoon they did go to other parts of the world. Yeah, that's true, but they always went back to the city. I still think you want to have at least some parts of the Ghostbusters myths that you don't play around with, and at least for the film, the adult tone was always very vital to me. But again, I guess we're going to differ in terms of how adult Ghostbusters should be. And now turning to Oppenheimer, there's a slew of casting news. Apparently, Emily Blunt, Matt Damon, and Robert Downey Jr. have all joined Oppenheimer. Now, I was critical that he's going to use Cillian Murphy again. I don't have a problem with Cillian. I just thought it was uncreative to use Cillian again, so this is welcome news. But will it work? Well, with Matt Damon, he already worked with Nolan on Interstellar. It's fine if we get a lot of quote, classic Nolan, right, using practical effects over special effects, not too much CGI, a lot of references to Kubrick and so on and so forth. But one of the issues I had with Tenet is it was him just recycling a lot of old material and a lot of old things. But this casting news is very reassuring. He's really trying to stretch himself. Because Blunt has done a lot of drama, but actually some of her bigger roles have been in comedy, so it's interesting. It's the same thing with Robert Downey Jr. Even though people know him as a MCU actor, even though people see him as Iron Man, he has done a lot of dramatic and comedic roles. And he's fairly versatile, so this is really going to be interesting what he does with Nolan. But we'll have to wait on more details for the screenplay to see if Oppenheimer is really something really both new but also very incredible. But at least with this kind of cast, the performances should be very compelling, if nothing else. But with Aykroyd, on a final note, even though Dave Chappelle himself is not consistent because he actually also supports some limits on comedy, I do think we should support him. I think overall censorship should be a really last resort. Now, comedians themselves are often not consistent on this, but I still think overall censorship is a very bad idea overall. But again, it's interesting what his opinion is on this now. People should know that Aykroyd is actually very conservative, so this is coming kind of from a conservative perspective. But we'll wait and see if this has larger effects for the Ghostbusters universe.